and thanks to everybody for participating today. We apologize we can't have a live and in-person press conference. We're all learning to do things by video these days, and I'm grateful for everyone's flexibility in participating in this way. The representatives on this call at this virtual press conference are representative of many, many other people throughout the community. And the thing that brings us all together and unites everyone is the interest of completing Interstate 49. I was on a radio program on 710 Keel this morning, and by way of kind of historical context, we forget I-49 is a project that was birthed in the late 1970s. The Federal Highway Administration approved an interstate highway route from South Louisiana around Opelousas, originally up to Shreveport. And construction began in 1981. This goes back a long ways. Everything was completed, about 95%, in fact, of Interstate 49 was completed and opened by the fall of 1989. And I remember that following year, the fall of 1990, I was a freshman at LSU, leaving Captain Shreve High School and going down to Baton Rouge. And we remember how I-49 revolutionized our lives and cut the travel time down dramatically to get to Baton Rouge. Interstate highways are really, really important for economic development and for all of our region and all the reasons that we know. The remaining segments of I-49, really the big, what they call Interstate 49 North, was the portion north of Shreveport to the Arkansas state line. And most of the people who are participating today are very familiar with the history of this, but it was 36 miles roughly, separated into 11 segments. And in recent years, all of those segments have been completed except one, and that's the 3.6 mile, the all-important corridor through Shreveport that would connect Interstate 20 to the 220 segment of I-49 and complete this all-important project. From there, from the northern border of the state, it goes even further north and connects us to a big swath of the country. And that's why we all believe this is so important. You had a lot of different elected officials, community leaders, business leaders, political leaders, all throughout the years and throughout the community who have worked on trying to get this project done. The intercity connector for I-49 is critically important to us. And as you know, the project is currently in the environmental review process, which is required under federal law in order to obtain the federal funding to finish a project like that. It's a complex, multi-step process. It involves a lot of moving parts, and we all know it usually takes, on average, the federal highway project like that, just about a little over 7 years to go from start to finish on that review process. But the I-49 project, the intercity connector, is now in its 8th year of the process, and we haven't even reached the first milestone yet. Many of us are greatly frustrated by this and have been. We've been hit with delay after delay, missed deadline after missed deadline, and we recently learned that the record of decision, which is the end of the process, may not be issued now until the end of 2021 at the earliest. And it's just not an acceptable deadline for us. And so a lot of people, without placing any blame or without pointing fingers, what's happened up to this point is not so relevant as what happens from today forward. A lot of us have come together in a bipartisan fashion to issue a letter today that would be addressed to Governor John Bel Edwards and to Dr. Sean Wilson, who's the head of the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development, to the Louisiana Division of the Federal Highway Administration, to NLCOG, who's been involved in all this, our good friend Kent Rogers, and to one of the contractors with Providence Engineering that's been involved in all these processes. And the letter is signed by many, many people. Here's a short list. It includes the congressional delegation, myself, and U.S. Senators Kennedy and Cassidy. We have state senators from Greg Tarver to Barrow Peacock, state representatives like Larry Bagley and Sam Jenkins. We have the mayors of Shreveport and Bossier, the Caddo commissioners like Roy Burrell, who's been a leader in this for a long time. The presidents of our chambers, including Shreveport, Bossier, Monroe, Alexandria, the African American Chamber, the Shreveport Economic Recovery Task Force, the Committee of 100, the North Louisiana Economic Partnership, the CEOs of all of our local hospital systems, scores of top industry and business leaders from every sector of the economy, and many, many more, clergy and otherwise. All of these folks agree, regardless of their political party or persuasion or what have you, that this is a project that is essential for our area, and that's why we're so aggressively trying to push this in a respectful manner. So the request is very simple. We're asking that the environmental review process be completed in a timely fashion and in an appropriate manner, so we maintain the integrity of the process for sure. but we're asking the recipients of the letter to agree with us that they'll make this a priority, and that even further, that at some time in the very near future, they'll schedule a meeting in North Louisiana so that they can come and we can all see one another eye to eye and have stakeholders from all around this project to hear the same thing at the same time together in terms of timeline and all that. There's two reasons we think this is so important, and then I'm going to yield to the other speakers. One is that I believe, as a member of Congress, I expect, and many other of my colleagues do on both sides of the aisle, that there may be a big infrastructure spending project or a package that comes through Congress in the early part of next year after the presidential election. Whomever is the president, I think that it may be Donald Trump, who's already committed to that, but even if it's a new president, Joe Biden, that he would feel an intense amount of pressure to do an infrastructure package. We want to be positioned well at that time to be able to make a very strong case for the completion of the intercity connector, because we know the project is going to cost at least $500 million and maybe more. Our state legislative delegation from our area has done a great job, Barrow Peacock and Larry Bagley and others on this call, and others who have gotten $100 million, as we know, designated from state funding for this project, but that's only about a fifth of what we'll need. And so we have to get our ducks in a row. We have to get this to, in layman's terms, what they refer to as a near shovel-ready project, so that we will have the ability to go and argue for these funds. So time is of the essence. And the second reason is we know we're in the recovery process of the pandemic and the crisis in the oil and gas market and all the other things that have befallen our state and our region in recent months and years. This project could be a critical component of that. And I know some of the speakers you're going to hear from here in a moment will tell you really what this could mean for our area. But without further ado, let me turn it over to them. Again, I want to thank everybody for their participation on the call and all the supporters on this letter for lending their time and their influence to this. And you're going to hear from some folks here in just a moment who really don't need any formal introduction, because these are some of the most well-known, familiar faces of our area, longtime leaders in our community who do so much, but they're all united on this project. And without further ado, let me turn it over to State Senator Barrow Peacock, who's been very instrumental in all of this and this project and so many other infrastructure projects for us. He represents District 37 on the Shreveport and a little bit of the Bossier area over the river. And so he's a perfect person to be the next speaker for us. So Senator Peacock, go ahead.
Thank you, Congressman Johnson. Actually, it's equal Shreveport Bossier, and we are one community.
That's right.
And this is a project, it's a generational project that our area is going to be persistent on from before we both could drive to now our children are starting to get their license to drive. It's a shame that we're still having to talk about this, but if there's any evidence, we're not going away. Our community has been united about wanting this project done. And as Al Kessler used to say, it's a three-legged stool. And this is a project of local government, of state government, and of our federal government. We want people to come into the heart of Shreveport Bossier. We want them to see our city center, to see our riverfront, to be able to sell our community to travelers crossing our country, and to realize that Shreveport Bossier here, we need to develop this in the right way that has service roads. If you look at I-49, especially in South Shreveport, where you're seeing businesses, Moffitt, Porsche, Audi, they want that visibility. That's what I-49 will do, is bring that visibility to the heart of our community. Our state will benefit too greatly. You know, sometimes I have my colleagues go, why do we need I-49 intercity? Why do we need this for Shreveport? I-49 connects Louisiana to the heartland of our nation. And our deep water ports in South Louisiana that export those agricultural products throughout the world will benefit the whole state. Just as we in Shreveport Bossier benefit from the LNG plants in Lake Charles, exporting the Haynesville gas, this will benefit putting those commodities in our ports in South Louisiana. So it benefits our entire state. And then, of course, our nation. And this is a partnership, local government, state government, and our federal government. You know, we have the most wonderful economy in the world, the biggest one. But it's because of investments like our interstate system that we got to continue to invest in our interstate system to keep, because we can't ever sit back as a country and just say everything's fine. So let's continue to invest. The state of Louisiana has invested $100 million to put towards this project. We've got to have the environmental assessment and record of decision done as quick as possible. This is something that we need to do. We don't need to be waiting, studying. We need to see results. We need to ask NLCOG, make this a priority, move very fastly. Ask DOTD, help NLCOG complete this. Let's not do the pointing, which finger is pointing, who's responsible. Let's come together, and that's what I appreciate you, Congressman Johnson, putting this together. Let's come together as federal, state, local governments, and our agencies within federal highways, DOTD, NLCOG. Let's get this done so we can complete I-49. As I said, Congressman Johnson, our kids are about to start driving, and I-49 was being finished about the time we started to drive. Let's make sure our grandkids aren't having the same problem that we're having today. And I have to commend, Shreveport, Bossier. We're going to continue to push on this. And anytime anybody who's running for statewide office comes to Shreveport, Bossier, they need to hear this 3.6 mile missing link. We need to complete it. Let's bring our state together and do this. So thank you for hosting this today. And, we all need to speak with a unified voice for Shreveport, Bossier. Let's not be divided. And I don't think we are. I think there's some people who want to just have issues with interstates in general, but this is a uniting effort of Shreveport, Bossier, in our state, in our country, to realize how vital this is for us all. So thank you, Congressman Johnson.
Very good. Thank you, Barrow. Appreciate that so much. It's a good segue. You talked about the working together, federal, state, local partners. There's few people that I know who've done more at so many of these levels that have served locally in Shreveport, then in Baton Rouge, and then now on the Caddo Commission, then our good friend, Caddo Parish Commissioner Roy Burrell. He represents District 5, and he's been at the helm on these things for a long time. And so, Commissioner Burrell, if you can hear us, go ahead. You'd be next. I think he's on. He might be on mute. Whitley, do we have him?
Let's see. I'm trying to find him.
Air traffic control is. I tell you what, while we're finding Roy, let's go to another handsome gentleman that I'm looking at right here. I know he's with us, and that's Mr. Larry English, and he has a very important role for us because he's the co-chairman of Shreveport's Economic Recovery Task Force, and we all know how vital that is for our area right now. They have weighty decisions on their shoulders, and I'm really glad he's at the helm. And so, Larry, I'm looking at you, so I know you could go next. Go ahead if you're ready.
Well, first of all, Congressman, thank you for your leadership, as well, Senator Peacock, for your leadership in acquiring funds. The Shreveport Economic Recovery Group, we came together as a group of business leaders, nonpartisan, focused on one issue, getting our city ready to recover from this devastating public health and economic meltdown that we're presently in. So we're looking at projects based off of that we think can get shovel ready. And the first project that popped up, and certainly is the most important project along with broadband, is the finishing out the I-49 connector project. Let me put this in because, I'm adopting everybody who's talking here today. I'm certainly adopting their position, but I want to kind of talk about this project just for a minute within the context of what's going on, and particularly with the African-American community. As everybody knows, the African-American community has suffered from COVID-19 disproportionately. I think they just announced that up to 60% of the gaming jobs in our community may be lost in the next coming month. That is going to disproportionately impact upon African Americans, and we're all aware of the global protests that are going on right now about police misconduct. In my opinion, all of those issues can certainly trace back to the lack of economic development opportunities in our community. Given where we are right now, given the tremendous pressure that's in our community, this project is desperately needed. This is a project that can be shovel ready for the congressman and the federal delegation to be able to secure the necessary funds. Infrastructure projects are job creators. They normally have a three multiplier. So if this project is $600 million, this project would have close to a $2 billion impact in our community. That would mean jobs, that would mean contracts, certainly it would mean have an impact on the Allendale community, which the project is coming through an economic, through a community benefits agreement. I agree with the congressman. We've kind of come to a lot of this late. We're not particularly interested in what happened previous to the day. We're not pointing any fingers at anybody, but what we're saying is that this project is absolutely crucial to the city's economic development recovery. There's not another project in the region, in Shreveport, that can be shovel ready that's going to have the short-term impact of what we're focused on right now, and certainly the long-term impact. We have friends from Alexandria all over the region who are supporting this project. So we would join the congressman and the other leaders on this phone in urging the powers that be, let's get this project moving. We can't wait to 2021 to get a record of decision or an environmental impact study. We've got to speed this project along, and we're prepared to bring all of our support as much as we can, any help we can, to move it forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Larry, so much for your leadership there. And I'm told that Roy Burrell has been able to get back with us, and he missed my glowing introduction of him, but I don't want to belabor the point. Commissioner Burrell, if you can speak up, we'd love to hear from you on this topic. Is he unmuted, Whitley?
I have requested him to unmute, so let's see. Mr. Burrell, if you would like to unmute yourself.
Okay, I've been doing these Zooms here. I think I am unmuted now. I'm sorry about the drop off mic, because I was looking forward to your dissertation. But anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to work with you again on this project. As some of you know, not many, I started dealing with this issue back in 1988 when Sister Margaret was still living, and we had opposition to the roadway going through there. But one thing I can say, even before her death, she admitted that it would have really helped a lot of the people in the area that she was doing her ministry in. She was given a lot of false information about building that roadway, just like many of the people in the community did. So she was opposed to it. And at that time, I was opposed to it, to be honest. I had her on my talk show. I had a talk show at the time. And we got on and we railed against it until we learned better. And the Bible speaks of that. When you learn better, you do better. And one thing I can say that she wasn't supportive of it before she died. I'm going to only talk about the part that really interests me. I was very much involved in trying to revitalize our inner city communities. Since 1998, we even created a nonprofit called the Inner City Entrepreneur Institute, which was focused on inner city redevelopment. I saw this as a way of taking a lot of blighted and dilapidated property and open it back up to commerce and helping people who were in an area that was quite desolate. This has been a long, long road for me. And after Hurricane Katrina, and I believe Ike too, I brought two governors here, Governor Blanco as well as Governor Jindal, and they brought their transportation people here. And the first thing they asked, where does this road go? Because they wanted to look at the evacuation route from New Orleans. And they had heard that when they got to New Orleans with the buses got lost because it was, they were dispersed in different directions. The ones that were supposed to be going to Arkansas on up to Oklahoma wound up being in Dallas somewhere. So they said that we needed to get this done. Kathleen Blanco then, I guess through part of my passion and others on the I-49 task force, she supported the money for the study through the city. And I had just become a new legislator back in 2003. And in 2005, I proposed along with Billy Montgomery, who proposed his bill after mine. And bless his heart, he and Lydia Jackson hijacked my bill to create his bill, and mine didn't go through. His did, but that's water under the bridge. But my focus has been economic development, and I've worked with Senator Peacock, Senator Tarver, some of the legislators on this, and they were all supportive of it. The one person that I wound up having to go up against was Representative Glover, who said that he would even support it at that time as long as we could get the I-49 from Arkansas down to I-220. But then he reneged after that for whatever reason. I can't go into that. But anyway, if we really look at this roadway, I understand the passion of the people who were there now, that where homes have been built. But when we got started on this project again, after 30-some years that I brought it back, there was no one. There was only shotgun houses and other dilapidated property in that area before the Fuller Center, before community renewal. Any of these groups started to rebuild houses in that area. I even supported them on tax credits to help pay for their building material, with the agreement that they would not build in the pathway of this roadway. And the pathway of this roadway had already been pretty well defined 30 years ago. So there was no reason for anybody to believe that it would go anywhere else. But there's been a lot of political opposition for whatever reason to this roadway. There are 7 things that I want to mention, and I'm through, that will benefit us with this. First of all, it would not force us to try to go around the city. It's too expensive. The economic studies show that it's too expensive to go around the city 14 miles rather than just go a path through it. It would also compromise our Cross Lake water supply. If we had toxic trucks or something going over our water supply, it would put us out of business for the next 20 to 30 years. We had already had at least 6 miles of interstate already built up to I-220. I'm talking about from Burt Coombs to I-220. That's about 6 miles already of this 9-mile pathway. It also provides a safe route for any toxic control traffic that comes through. You don't want to take it over your water supply. The economic impact. I was afraid that whenever they added this review by this new consulting company, they was trying to block this project. But it was interesting enough that that Providence, when they did their economic study, they said it would be an annual impact of $863 million to the city of Shreveport and the region. This new consulting company that they brought in, it gave it a total of $802 million economic impact, annual economic impact, which impressed me because I figured that they were using the second consulting company to deflect from what Providence had already done. As I said before, my interest was to clean up blight in that area, and if you would look at the route a few years ago when we got started, I used to call it the yellow brick road because most of the property through there, through the path that it's taking, was adjudicated to the city and the parish. So I used to call it the yellow brick road because it was a path that we can control. And the other thing is the spin-off economic development. We need to create this as an anchor for the West Edge Art District. And there are so many things that we could do. I would like for you to look at what Lafayette did. They did a 3-year planning program with the community for them to tell them what they wanted to see in there. That is how they gained their support to take I-49 through Lafayette. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Congressman.
Thank you, Roy, so much. And all of that insight and institutional knowledge you have is very valuable to all this effort. And I want to echo what you said. I'm sure everyone on the call, and I know all, I'm sure I can speak for all the signatories on this letter. We greatly appreciate community renewal and the Fuller Center and the great work they do. I mean, there's no question about that. And I had a call just end of last week with the Allendale Strong representatives, and some of the greatest people in our community. I mean, I just love them. They're very passionate about this. But reasonable minds and good people can come to different conclusions on important questions, and that's something we want to acknowledge. And what we're saying with this letter is we just want the officials in charge at the state level to make the decision. They have all this data. I'll point out that NLCOG sponsored over 25 public hearings over the last several years, and more than 94% of the public input supported a direct route through the city and rejected that loop-it route that you referenced, Commissioner Burrell. So thank you so much for that insight. Let me go to our next speaker. We got 2 or 3 more and more great insight. One of them is another lady who needs no introduction. She's ubiquitous in the community. She's been a leader at so many levels on so many things. And right now, she's the chair of the Transportation Committee of the Shreveport Economic Recovery Task Force, and that's Linda Bernanke, who's been a great point person on this. So Linda, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Congressman Johnson and Senator Peacock and Commissioner Roy Burrell. Y'all have done an amazing job of getting this back up to the forefront of where it needs to be. I'm a small business owner. I'm here in Shreveport. I'm celebrating 30 years this year. I look around us and we are literally dying on the vine. We have a 25% unemployment rate, and I look around and I saw our delegation last year secure $100 million for this inner city I-49 connector, which was amazing in just itself. But we have to re-energize all of us to put this back up to the forefront of what this really truly means, not only to the region, to the state. We have done every single study imaginable from the economic study. We've done a neighborhood choice neighborhood transportation enhancement study, which is what this is what will revitalize the Allendale and the Leadbell Heights. We've done that study. We've taken a lot of ideas. We can capture federal funds for taking the blighted areas of the city, Roy, and get economic dollars from the federal government. And I think the number one thing that all of us have to agree on is we have to get this project ready to capture those federal funds. That's the most important piece of this, the urgency of getting the EIS and the record decision by January. This would be great by January. So we can be in the front gates getting federal funding. I want to say, our Shreveport Chamber, Bossier Chamber, the Committee of 100, under the leadership of Patrick and now Greg Lott, we all know the importance of this project and what it will bring to our city. So we have $100 million. We need to make this a top priority. And I truly believe if the governor says it's a top priority, it will get done. So we have to reach out to Governor Edwards. And I believe this letter, I will say, I was told last September when y'all had a meeting that the governor wanted to make sure that this project was a unified project of support throughout the community. And I believe the letter that we will be sending him this afternoon shows how we have captured so many different community leaders, business leaders, African Americans, from Monroe to Alexandria to Lafayette. This is going to be great for our state, and we cannot let this moment pass us by. So I'm a little passionate.
Yes, you are. We're grateful for that, Linda, and that leadership is so important right now. I wanted to quote to you, as you said that before I introduce the next speaker, what Governor Edwards said. He was here. It was October 2018 when we had everybody was there, the ribbon cutting on the interchange for 220. And he said at that ceremony, quote, "This is an investment to improve daily commutes, to make sure that commerce can move better in this region and across the state. And in this case, create a brand new interstate interchange and put another piece of the vital I-49 corridor into place. This is critical if we're going to remain competitive economically." That's the governor himself said that to all of us here just less than 2 years ago. So, we know that he agrees with all this. We're just asking him to help us make it that top priority, as you said. Another really important voice in all of this is Dr. Tim Magner, who is the president, as everyone knows, of the Shreveport Chamber, and has just done a great job. He's always on the spot on everything, and we wanted to give him a moment today to speak to the issue as well. So, Dr. Magner, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Congressman. I really appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the outpouring, once again, of support for this critical roadway and this critical project. I think it's important to put this in context, not just for Shreveport as the gateway of North Louisiana's gateway to the rest of the country, but the sort of visionary impact that this road has on our nation. I-49, when it's completed, will link I-10, I-20, and I-30. And today we've got the link from I-30 down to 220. We then have a link from 20 almost to 10. And so this 3.5 mile segment actually will be a critical link in our national roadway, in addition to what it does for our state and our region. And I think that's an important piece to recognize, because you mentioned at the outset the generational nature of this project, but it's also part of a broader national vision for what we can do as a country to help move goods and services around the country. And when you look at where we sit consequently in Shreveport, at the confluence of I-20 going east and west, and then I-49 going north and south, that has tremendous impact on the state of Louisiana, our ability to move goods and services vertically throughout the country, from New Orleans all the way on up, but also across east and west. And I think when you look at impact, when you look at the dollar impact, the $356 million of additional economic impact that can come to this community, but you see that for the investment that would be necessary to do 3.6 miles, the ripple effects of that locally in terms of access to downtown, access to the Health Science Center for folks in North Bossier and North Caddo, all the way into the ability to be able to move goods and services within Louisiana, and then to be able to share Louisiana's goods and services throughout the nation. This is a critical corridor that is crying out for completion. And the fact that we have the unanimity of purpose in our community, the collaboration of all of the organizations and individuals that you see here, is a testament not only to the collaborative nature of the work that you congressmen and others have put into this, but the importance that we as a community place on this. We mentioned 25 meetings. The average for a project like this is 6 or 8. The percentage of people who have voiced their ongoing support, the letters of support that we've generated over the years, really lead us to, I hope, be able to communicate to the folks in Baton Rouge, but also the folks in Washington, how vital this project is for us, how committed we are to it, and what an important corridor this is going to be for our community, our state, and our nation. So thank you for your leadership on this. Thank you to everyone for their continued participation. And we look forward to continuing to collaborate and getting this done. Thank you.
Thank you for all that leadership. And as we mentioned at the outset, the Bossier Chamber, Monroe, Alexandria Chambers, African American Chamber, everyone united on this. And Tim, you're a great representative of that whole group. Two other representative voices I want to introduce, and then we'll take questions from media or anyone. Brian Crawford is on with us, and I wanted him to speak briefly because As most people know, he's currently the COO of the Willis-Knighton Health System, which is obviously a huge component of this community. But he has a lot of experience in all this arena as well. As everybody knows, he was the former CAO of the city of Shreveport under the Tyler administration. And prior to that, he was the fire chief of Shreveport. And I still refer to him as chief because my dad was a firefighter, and once chief, always a chief. But if Brian, if you can unmute your line there and you want to speak to the issue, that would be great. I think he's on, Whitley, right?
Well, I believe he texted me and said that Jim Elrod did call for a meeting at 11, okay. But I thought maybe he would come in at a little later time, but I guess he's still in the meeting.
When Mr. Elrod calls a meeting, everybody goes. I get it. Let me go to one other voice. Patrick Harrison, I know, is on the phone, and Patrick and I have spent a lot of time on this. He was, as Linda referenced, was leading with Community 100 and doing so much good work. And he texted me a moment ago and said he had a word. So Patrick, if Whitley, if you can find him on that list.
And Congressman, also Attorney Kelvin Sanders from Alexandria, Louisiana, who really kind of organized that group. You could ask him to say a word. That would be really great.
Fantastic. We'll have him right after Patrick.
Okay.
Sorry to do this to you. We're calling an audible here, but that'd be great.
Sure, I'm here. The one thing I'd like to say, Mike, is that I got involved in this project back in 2014 through the Committee 100 as one of our top initiatives, and really dove into the project, and we researched it and quickly realized that we weren't the only group in Shreveport and Bossier and this whole North Louisiana region that wanted to complete this. So we started a movement from the business community and neighborhood associations, and it quickly just imploded from support from the Manufacturers Managers Council, from the Chamber of Commerce's, the North Shreveport Business Association. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And so we got resolutions of support from every organization that's related to the business community, and strong support at that. And it's been a very frustrating path over the past 6 years. We met with Secretary Sherry LaBalle back then, and she indicated that it would probably be completed within 3 to 4 years, the EIS, and that was 3 years ago. So, I mean, this process has really just taken a complete back seat to priorities with the state. And we really hope that we can get this thing back on track where it needs to be to provide the benefits that you all discussed. And recently, we've identified between 60 and 70,000 residents that live in North Bossier, North Caddo, from Benton, North Bossier, Blanchard, Dixie, Belcher, Gillum, all of those communities that can't get access to parts of Shreveport, like the Uri Drive corridor, who desperately needs those people to come and benefit their businesses and restaurants. And the Kings Highway corridor, we are doing so much with the med school and the hospitals and the new building they're building there, and BRF's initiatives. All of those things are limited in access to a big portion of our community. So there's a big economic benefit from that, but there's also a strong community benefit. People from MLK and the whole north region of North Bossier and Caddo have to go through 18 stoplights to get to the Kings Highway, to get to the LSU Med School or the hospital. And that's just unacceptable in this day and age with infrastructure. So I thank you for all the work you've done. I certainly have been involved with the Manufacturers Council and the Chambers and the Committee 100, and we appreciate all the support that Barrow Peacock and really all of our delegation has been very supportive of this. And it's been it's hard to find anyone that's against the project except for a very short, small group of people that are advocating to stop it. And so we hope that we can keep this momentum moving forward. And thank you, Congressman, for all the hard work you put into it, and all of our delegation, both federally, locally, and at the state level. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Patrick. And from there, we'll go to our counselor in Alexandria. Are we unmuted now?
Yes, thank you, Congressman.
Great.
for inviting me. Thank you, Mr. English, as well. As we're having this conference, I'm actually looking out at I-49, which runs through downtown Alexandria. So, and I want to relay this actual experience I had with I-49. In 2012, I was traveling from Kansas City, Missouri. And of course, I got a chance to ride on I-49 in Western Missouri. But I had to get off when I got in northern Arkansas, and I couldn't get back on until I got south of downtown Shreveport. And as I was making that journey, I was saying, man, I wish this highway was completed. And of course, here we are 8 years later, and we're talking about that very issue. I-49 completion is critical, not only to Shreveport, but also Alexandria, Opelousas, Natchitoches, Lafayette, all of the cities, and eventually on round to New Orleans. It is absolutely critical for our state. So we're glad to support this effort and glad to be invited to participate in it. Very critical for our entire state in terms of job development, job growth, and it's just past time forward. So glad to be part of the effort, and thank you for inviting me.
Kelvin, thanks so much. And that perspective is so important. If you remember, it's been a long time. It's 1996 when that 17-mile section through downtown Alexandria was opened and named, of course, the Martin Luther King Jr. Highway. And that was such a critical piece of infrastructure for central Louisiana. And then now we've just got this little piece left to finish. So thanks for that that context and emphasizing the importance of it. I guess we're probably way overdue to go to questions, and so let me do that. I want to be a good steward of everybody's time. We've been on the phone or the video conference already for 45 minutes. So I know there's several media outlets with us, and so if y'all have questions, Whitley, do you want to do air traffic control on that?
Yes, if everyone who wants to ask a question, there is going to be on the corner a hand. If you raise your hand, I will bring you live on the feed. So if you can just press that little hand. And we'll see if we have any questions. And in the meantime, do you have any additional comments, Mr. Congressman? Yeah, sure. I just want to say, while people are raising a hand, if not, maybe we flooded them with information, and that's good too. But the letter will be released today. We've also put together, the participants of the call have seen our handy little graphic that depicts, you know, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. This graphic may be worth 10,000, but it just shows the constant delays that have been, we just said unacceptable delays in the Intercity Connector project. We've counted 7 different revisions in the last 3 years to deadlines that have been set and then reset. And what all the signatories on this letter are saying is, let's just put that behind us and move forward now, as we've said. So I'm really grateful for all the people who have lended their names and their influence to this, and hopefully we'll be able to have the momentum, as everyone has said so eloquently, to move this forward because the time is just critical. So Whitley, you got questions there or not? If not, that's
Congressman, if I might, just wanted to let folks know that we have a website called finishi49.org that has a collection of information about the route, about all of the public hearings that have gone on, maps, information from NLCOG, information from the state, and we encourage folks for additional information to check that out. It's finishi49.org, and we'll be putting additional information up there as it becomes available.
That's a great source of information. Thanks for mentioning that. I meant to do that earlier. So, all
right. We actually, we don't have any questions, but I just want to let everyone know that we will be including the graphic that you held up in the press release as well for their use. And we will be sending out the letter in the release as well as the link to this conference. Great. And I'll point out as we close here that, again, the tone of this, as you'll see from the letter, is not, I think it's very appropriate. We're trying to say, let's all work together. I think that by the bipartisan nature of this and the broad swath of leaders that we have across every sector of the community,
is a showing of that this is something, one of these things that draws everybody together, and we're so grateful for that. We mentioned the urgency of the timing, and I'll end with just our hope that we can do this. Look, Louisiana, as everyone knows, is facing serious challenges right now. Before the crisis in the oil and gas market, some of the national groups that do economic indications had ranked the 50 states, trying to assess who would have the easiest to the hardest time recovering post-COVID-19 pandemic, and Louisiana was ranked the 50th state. That was before the crisis hit the oil and gas market. So there's a number of factors behind that, and that's a whole other discussion. But the point is, we know this is a very sobering time for us, and we have to be very, very serious, and we have to have a sense of urgency, perhaps right now, that we have never had before on projects like this. So again, I'm just grateful for everybody who signed on as a supporter of this letter. I'm hopeful we can all continue to work together in this great spirit to make progress for our area. Thank you all so much for participating, and we'll be following up here soon with more and more information. God bless.